It was short-lived.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying, sure.
And Joe, there are many more incriminating parts of that whole thing.
Oh yeah, that it was a great send-off. I mean, they did some amazing. Whenever anybody entered into the celebration, they all came in a Volkswagen Beetle that was cut out, a mock-up, and there was a driver. So at one point, there comes the bishop behind him, trying to get it, they put it down, and the bishop gets out. That's how everybody came and went. Well, I'm going to turn it over now. I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Trexler, and we'll hear from Pastor.
I'm used to standing up. I wanted to spend most of this time, and we have what, till like 1/4 till?
Yes, sir.
If need be, but depends on what you want to do. I think in your history, this is the first time you've had what's called an intentional interim ministry. And it's much more than just somebody to supply on Sunday morning, or just to maybe attend council meetings. But it truly, I will be installed next Sunday at both services by assistant to the bishop, Jean Bozeman. She had things already set up for today normally, but that's when it would have been, but I said, that's fine. But that gives sort of an official kind of note to it as well. And my time, this is a transition time. So it has its own sense of, there's always a sense of loss when pastors leave, under most circumstances. And I don't care how good or how bad a ministry is, there are always people who are very, very sad when a person leaves. There are people who are happy when the person leaves. I can tell you quite frankly that one of my good friends, and I'm a very open kind of person, this will show you an example, shared with me a comment of what, I only think I had really one official detractor in First Lutheran in 9 years, and that ain't bad. And said when the vote was made for the pastor who's recently started there, he's a very good friend and a very fine pastor, said, well, now we have a real pastor. As I said, there are always people who fire the pastor unofficially and just won't let you be their pastor. And in continuing the kind of responses, there's some people then who also are confused. They maybe have never been a part of a congregation where a pastor left. That congregation in Greenwood, South Carolina, I was the first pastor in anybody's memory who left under their own steam. My predecessor retired there after 22 years, so people could understand that. His predecessor had been there 30-some years and died while he was serving that congregation. His widow was still a member, and my predecessor and his spouse were still members. Not the best of circumstances when you're talking about transition. We are told ethically we're really not to stay in congregations that we've served, whether it's by retirement or by moving to another place, even in the same area. So they were confused, especially because, why would I leave? And some people get angry about that. Some people get angry when a pastor dies. How dare that person die while they're serving us? And, I know some of you probably have those kinds of feelings too. And then there are the people who see it as a part of transition, as a part of life cycles. All of us are born and die. We all come to some kind of job and eventually leave. Pastors come to congregations and pastors go. It's not about the pastor, though the pastor is a very important part of any system. It's like I tell people too, some people at times would say, how could that pastor, with what I know, be serving at King, for instance? It's the office that we represent. It's not Bill Trexler. It's the office of Word and Sacrament. So if that helps any of you, I haven't been around here long enough to make enemies, but sometimes it doesn't take very long. But just always remember that. You can receive the sacrament from me and not let me get in the way. It's God coming to you. It's not me. So there are people who understand that these changes take place. And so what I'm going to be doing while I'm here is giving an opportunity for sort of a new face, a new ear, somebody to do the things that pastors do so you have a sense of continuity. And it's not just this every week. But also somebody who can listen, especially during this, in the best of all worlds, I would be here, well, maybe, I was going to say 5 months, or less. I will be here, if your new senior pastor is called and is here, within 5 months, I'll still be here. One thing that is mentioned, I had already made arrangements with a congregation unofficially through the bishop in North Carolina to begin service in March. And so when we began our conversation here, that was known up front. And but God's time is not necessarily what our time is, to wit my retirement. But Bishop Monty asked me to do this, and I have always been attentive to calls, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't, but I really felt like it was a call, and even though it meant being separated from my wife for extended periods of time, which is not something I'm used to, nor is she, but I said, I've known so many Navy people on 6-month deployments and others, and my heart has always gone out to them and to their families, and many of you, I'm sure, have experienced that. I said, if they can do that, I can certainly do this. And because of the schedule that we have, I'm really yours fully during the time that I'm here. Peggy asked me, what's your day off? I said, I don't have one, and she gave me this. Because I have been one to preach that very sermon to pastors. It is definitely necessary. But I said, I'm going to have like 5 days off, 4 to 5 days off. And so I'm fully yours every day of the week while I'm here. But then I've got those, because of the 7-hour drive between here and home, to make the best use of that time, I need a space. So that's how I'm going to do that. During this first month then, let's say it's 5 months, God. The first month is listening. Though the more you get around me, the harder it is for me to just sit back and listen. That's been pointed out as another theme besides building programs. But the first month is to discover your heritage, and it is a goodly heritage. I just want to tell you that for me to be able to worship in this space with the musician, the music that you have, it feeds my soul. And that's the kind of thing that happened for me at First Lutheran as well. That's the kind of thing we had in St. Mark's in Jacksonville for 16 years while I served there. That is extremely important to me. And so I am really fed through what you have been a part of putting together here. I'm fed thus far in this month of getting some sense, this whole week that I've now been here. I'm fed by the welcome I've received, by the kind of preparations that were made, by the response to anything I asked. I think Betty can tell you I don't ask the impossible.
Well.
The beautiful thing about her is she anticipates it before I even ask. And the way Joe, from the time we began to become email partners, buddies, and the questions, we just were on the same page.